Welcome to this video where we want to show you how to restore an SAP HANA instance to an alternate host using Spectrum Protect Plus. We see here the Spectrum Protect Plus user interface. We have registered two different SAP HANA instances. They even have different revisions. One is revision 50, that one is revision 59. We are going to restore data that has been backed up on that system with revision 50 to that system that has revision 59 that is supported according to the SAP HANA requirements. Vice versa, it would not work. And in order to prepare this system or to do that restore, we have to do some preparations because we do not want to do some sort of production restore that will copy over the data. We will do that so-called test mode restore, where we just mount the data from the backup that is located on vSnap volumes and will start the database on that via NFS mounted volumes. And in order to do so, we need to prepare that target system. We are now on the target system, switch to the user, to the SAP HANA instance admin, just to check, okay, the database is stopped, that is good. Otherwise, we would see the HTTP index server and other processes that are belonging to the SAP HANA instances running here. So we just have made sure the database is not up and running. And for the test mode restore, we need to note one thing, it will not overwrite any data. So if we want to do a test mode restore, we have to make sure that the instance we are going to restore to does not contain any data. And currently we still have data here, and we really need to remove that. This is just a safeguard that you not do by accident, just restore to otherwise important system. Because after that restore is finished or we would stop that instance, then all data would be gone. So we want to make sure that you're restoring to the correct system, stop the instance and remove the data. Okay, the data is gone, and with that we can switch back to the Spectrum Protect Plus user interface and create that restore job. We just have backups for that system with the instance ID UH4. We want to restore that data. We could now do a point-in-time recovery or just restore the data of that snapshot backup. We have two backups here. I picked the most recent one. And I'm going to do a test restore, not a production restore. If we select here production restore, then the data from the vSnap volume would be copied over to the SAP HANA system to the same place where it was at the time of the backup. If we would select a different instance, then it would be copied over to the data volume of that instance. That test mode restore will start the database on the vSnap volume, so it does not need to copy over all the data back to the system. So this is really a new use case. We don't have that with Spectrum Protect for ERP. Okay, we could even do a restore to the original instance. Now we want to use an alternate instance. Now we get listed that instance here. And that, by the way, is the reason that that instance must have been registered with Spectrum Protect Plus before, so that we can select it here as a target for our test mode restore. Okay, and we will recover until end of backup. Otherwise, we would have selected the point in time option before. And that's it. We can submit the job. And it is now running. Can switch over to the running jobs, and we see that the restore job has already started. That is now taking some time because it is mounting the vSnap volume to that new host and creating links in the SAP HANA data directory that point to the files on the vSnap. And finally, it will start the database and just recover to the end of backup. So there's a short recovery involved that makes the database up and running. We get here a warning, but that one is expected. The database instance must not be running on the target system, so everything is okay. We got now the message that the restore operation has been started, so we can switch over to the shell of that system and just do some checking here. Okay, we see that the vSnap volume has already been mounted. That's the volume that contains the actual backup data that we are using to start and recover the database on. And if we check here, that is the link I mentioned before. So we have created a link in the data directory that points to the data on the vSnap volume. We could also switch to the instance user and run the HTTP info. And we see that the database is already about to start up. Switch back to the UI and see if there are any new messages. No, the restore is still in progress. Probably there is currently a recovery running. And that again, yeah, the index server is also starting up. I was finally able to connect to the system database, so that looks pretty good. Let's just do a check. Okay, and here we have the indication that we have restored from that system with the SID UH4. So we are restoring to UP8, but since we did a restore from UH4, we have now that database running here. So that finally proves that our restore process was successful. Let's switch back to the UI and check. The restore process is still ongoing. Probably the recovery of the tenant database is not yet complete, but the system database was up and running. We have been able to connect. Let's check back. Can we run the command again? Status is active, so it should be up and running. Then probably the restore will be finished within a moment. Yeah, and that just demonstrates how easy it is to create a copy of an SAP HANA system on a different host. By using the test mode restore, the database data does not need to be copied from the backup location back to the host. And it took about 6 minutes to spin up that system. The time does not depend on the amount of data because we are not moving data. Probably it takes a bit more time to recover a much more larger system. This one is pretty small, just a couple gigabytes large. If we have a database that is several terabytes, it might take a bit longer to do the recovery, but it will be significantly faster than copying over all the backup data to that target system. On the other hand, we are running the database on the mounted vSnap volumes, mounted via NFS. So we cannot expect the same performance as we can expect from an instance that is running on the local volumes. But for doing a check if backup data is consistent, running some tools on that, such a test mode restore is the perfect thing. That's basically all I wanted to show about the restore. What you might notice is that this restore is showing a status of resource active. So as long as the instance is running and the volumes are mounted, that entry will remain in active state. To remove that instance here, we first have to stop the database instance because the cleanup processing will not stop the instance. So we will do that manually here. HDB stop should shut down the entire instance. Need to wait a moment for this action to complete. Okay, that is done. Just do a check. Okay, all the processes are gone. We still have that vSnap volume mounted here. And now we can cancel the restore. That means the volume will be removed from the host and some further cleanup will be done. Okay, now that cleanup processing has been started. Okay, the cleanup processing has finished and we switch back to the system just to do check. Yes, as expected, that vSnap volume is no longer mounted. System is cleaned up. In order to make use of that system again, we probably need to restore or we would reserve that system for additional test mode restores. That's pretty much all I wanted to show about the SAP HANA restore with Spectrum Protect Plus. Thanks for watching.